Hey, what's up? I'm Blue Redacted. Are you Green Redacted on Twitch? I really want to talk about something. How can I help? So you are Green Redacted. I'd like to talk about Star Wars. Alrighty. You play Dungeons and Dragons, I assume. I don't, actually. It doesn't really specify on your page. Would you be willing to try? I'm good, thanks. Do you realize how you appear here? Context, our GM wore a black Ghostbusters robe while he was DMing this particular session that was linked here. I'd like to make a few serious comments. I'm American, as I noted. I didn't watch the full stream, but guessing on how you elaborately cloaked yourself, I might assume you're a galactic overlord. With that being said, I also have a huge support for British superiority, especially when it may appear like this. I implore you, can you at least consider my proposal to join? I will pass, thank you. Can we at least communicate, though? What do you propose we communicate about? Star Wars, of course. But seriously, are you an evil overlord? That cloak is elaborate. It's just my dressing gown. It was cold that night. I believe that, but the way you're leading the conversation in that session kinda also led me to this theory. I'm a game master, so it's kinda my job. You got a point. Sorry if I bothered you. Yeah, no problem. I think we've all had that awkward conversation with someone asking to join your TTRPG game. I will say, though, flattering the game master by claiming they're an evil overlord, that is quite the unorthodox strategy. I don't know if it's a successful strategy, though, I respect them for trying. First off, I apologize that the story isn't the most cohesive. It happened about a year ago, over the course of a couple of days. So I'm going to explain the events in the order I remember them, which may not be 100% accurate. So I was in an LFG looking for group Discord server, looking at some new game listings, particularly play-by-post games, because I wanted to try the conversion that the server provided without needing to voice chat with other people and have it done during text. One of said games was a play-by-post based on the SMP stuff, which, while I don't know much about it, I do enjoy lightly, and nothing else of the pitch seemed odd, so I thought I'd apply. Gonna state now, this server does allow for not safe for work games if everyone is up for it in your game. And while I believe the party was not going to pull the trigger, the intent of the DM was for this to occur based on what he said early, and it would have needed to be in the pitch. I'm glad this whole thing resolved the way it did in only a weekend, otherwise the DM would have probably taken it to that NSFW point. I messaged in the thread connected to the pitch that I was interested, and he mentioned the sign-up process. It involved a small sign-up with things like character and in-real-life gender as to not get confused in the text. Do's and don'ts were listed for if things went NSFW, which I left blank, as with other similar things on the server. And finally, that we needed to provide a horror story we've experienced before. Now, I'm no expert, but asking players to explain some of their worst experiences and requiring them to be in a bad experience prior by proxy is not how to make your players feel welcome. Red flag number one, but I kept on because I was still a bit new to the server. He also mentioned he has a lot of roleplay related trauma. Red flag number two, I provided a paraphrase of one horror story I did have with a psychopathic DM. Might talk about that one another time, but it's even more all over the place. And then went on to actually talking about my character, a shy, hacking druid, which would be adapted for the setting. The DM came up in the thread talking about how we all made small characters, which we were baffled by. Mine was a tallish human, just shy. Another one would have been a high-energy goblin, and the last was a neutral tiefling. He went on to say that they were all small energy, which I still don't understand with this lineup. The goblin player just went, alright, nope, I'm out, with a disappearing gif, because the DM being weird for having this complaint of the party being small energy, which was a minor red flag to the goblin player for that quick eject, combined with some minor things in the background. By then, the DM responds in friggin' semaphore with his own red flag of, well, I guess the DM isn't a person. Oh no, trying to communicate with the party in a potentially risky game so they have fun. Woe is me, and all that. The goblin does respond genuinely with, the DM is allowed to discuss with the party members. So far, all that's happened though is characters are all similar in a superficial and broad way, followed by, this must change. It's not exactly great that your opening decision is to be sarcastic when presented with a little pushback before he left. At this point, I'm only sticking around out of morbid curiosity. We eventually get to a private server for the game where we start making characters as well. I did talk in DMs to the goblin player, and he does apologize to me, though he didn't apologize to the strange DM. He does get added into the server and then immediately kicked because he argued with the DM. He'll do so again. That's red flag 4, I think. Give it a bit, and other people start to leave. The DM starts ranting about how bad his life is, how nothing goes right, how his first group supposedly sided with the... What? And kicked him out. And he's had horror story after horror story, and he should just... Ooh, that's not good. The remaining players try calming and helping him, but I've been the victim of this exact kind of manipulation, and this guy finally reeked of it with these mannerisms, so I left on the spot. Myself apologizing to that goblin player in direct messages, we go our separate ways. As I headed back to the LFG server, I see that Goblin's Discord account is deleted, which probably means he had some red flags too, and the DM was no longer on that server, with several of the messages from the event deleted as well, but enough where I could fact check myself. And that was the last I saw of any of these guys, and honestly for the best. Eventually I did find some fun play-by-post to play, and try some new things in Dungeons & Dragons, even attempted ERP, but I came to the conclusion it wasn't for me by my choice, not the forcing of a weird SMP game, which definitely felt like it was going that way out of my control. Okay, the reason why I picked this one out of my email is because somebody did post about requiring horror stories in LFG, even bringing my name into it, which I did not appreciate, by the way. Guys, horror stories are not required to have a good D&D game, okay? They can teach some interesting lessons, yeah, but most importantly, the reason we do this is mostly for entertainment. Lessons are a neat byproduct. They're certainly not a requirement for a good game. Stop claiming that they are, seriously. And if you are gonna do that, keep my name out of it, come on.
My name is my name!
On top of that, though, the trauma dump at the end, look, that's not good, ever. In a D&D game, you're not playing with intimate friends all the time. This is an LFG group, a play-by-post group that just formed, and this guy is putting some serious mental health issues on these people, and that is never, ever okay. Is it manipulation? I'd believe it. A former friend of mine actually did pull that on me. We're not friends anymore, to say the least. I can't imagine getting that kind of behavior from a stranger, though. This game was a game on Roll20 with strangers, so going in, I knew it would be hit or miss. I've played games with strangers that have turned out to be disasters, and I've played games where everyone's become friends and had a great time. Never before have I played a game that was such an absolute disaster, where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong right from the outset. The setup was some sort of heist one-shot. We'd all been contacted by some mysterious benefactor to meet up at this tavern, and from there we'd be hired to break into some manor in town. We were all asked to come up with thieving characters, or ones that would have an interest in making money without asking questions. I come up with a charlatan bard with disguise self spell and charm person powers. I specifically state as part of his backstory, he has disguise self, and confirm it with the DM this won't be too OP for the infiltration mission he wants us to play. He says it's all fine and will be starting at a high enough level for those abilities that I have. Sounds alright so far for a Thieves Guild quest, right? Game starts, and everything goes wrong. I'm playing with 9 strangers, some of whom don't even get the chance to do their introductions, as some players are hogging the spotlight, talking over everyone else, or going off and brooding in the corner and refusing prompts to interact with the rest of the party. We're all level 1, which was not discussed. It results in everyone with a cool backstory now being a scrub loser, and half the abilities we'd okayed in private were wiped off my character sheet. Thanks for lying straight to my face to get me into your game, Dungeon Master. Hey DM, I just finished up my character sheet, turned it into a super nifty little notebook. I'm pretty proud of how it turned out, honestly. Here, give me that. And hey! Unbelievable.
You made an illegal character.
Dude, I spent like 3 days scrapbooking that. Are you kidding me?
We are starting at level 1.
You said we were starting at level 3.
I lied.
What's the point of having a session 0 if you're going to lie?
You know too much.
I literally don't. The DM decides he wants our patron to be some sort of mysterious benefactor, but goes about it all the wrong way. We're told we received unsigned notes to meet someone here, and not to trust anyone else. This ensures we're all just sitting around, waiting for the quest giver to show up, and avoiding each other's characters. The tavern is having some sort of night of games event that everyone must participate in. I suppose this was done as some sort of icebreaker to make us form teams and get to know each other, but it's almost immediately ruined by pairing us up with NPCs and making our opponents NPCs as well. These little dice gambling games go on for over an hour in real time and result in most of us getting hammered drunk from mandatory drinking contests. We win from the contest some sort of gem with a message written on it in a language only a few party members can read. It's supposed to get us to share the message with those who can read it, except the guy who won the gem is one of the only 2 people who can read it, and he's a massive douchebag, so he refuses to share the information with everyone else and repeatedly declares his intent to leave us all here and go after the treasure by himself. He needs to be stopped multiple times out of character from doing this. The DM is barely paying attention at this point. He doesn't get that the player character with the gem isn't sharing the message because he doesn't understand the message. It's because he's a jerk. He sends in a DMPC who also speaks the language into the tavern. She awkwardly tries to start a conversation with the problem player character. She's then told to piss off, and then just sort of wanders around the inn with no idea what to do. We repeatedly ask this lady in and out of character if she can just give us the mission without the Carmen Sandiego coded message shtick. We later find out from the Dungeon Master that she is a member of this secret society, but she feigns ignorance of what we're talking about and then just wanders out the door. He's really committed to this secret agent little orphan Annie coded message BS. Never mind everyone hates it and isn't having fun anymore. We are now 3 hours in and half the party has left without a word. Eventually the DM and problem player get bored. The former because no one gets his brilliant message, and the player from not being allowed to solo the adventure. The message just says, go behind the bar. So we go behind the bar and almost get into a fight with the barkeep. After spending almost half an hour in real time looking for another clue, the DM passive-aggressively suggests we go into the alley behind the bar. There's no one there, and we all just stand around for a bit, waiting for our contact to show up. Eventually, the DM tells us to dig a hole in the ground to find, you guessed it, another sign with a coded message on it. Finally, we decipher it, and it says to go to the manor. Keep in mind, it's been 3.5 real-world hours at this point. Excluding me, 4 out of 9 people have left without a word. We're just starting the mission this one-shot was supposed to be about. This is a theater of the mind game, and it's not at all working well with the store's story. Can we climb the fence? No, it's too high. How high is it? Too high. Can we dig under the fence or jump onto the building from another rooftop? Nope, there's guards watching. How many guards and where are they? There's too many guards and they're everywhere at once. It would be impossible to sneak up on this mansion without being seen. Sure would be nice if we weren't all level 1, wouldn't it? Can we ask the guards to let us in and show them the letter? The guards ask the owner of the mansion who you are, and he's never heard of you. You're told to leave, and now the guards are on alert because they know you want in. Nice going. Well, screw you too, Game Master. We're 5 hours in now. Without even entering the mansion, we just said screw it and ended it there. All of us resolve to burn the mansion down if we do meet back up. The DM freaks out, asks why every single time he tries to run this brilliant adventure he thought up, everyone ends up burning the mansion down. He was going to make this into a whole campaign of adventures for the secret group, and we ruined it for him. We try to tell him that the whole convoluted mess with the coded messages was a waste of time, and someone either should have been at the bar to tell us to rob the manor or just start us off already knowing what to do. He ignores us and continues to whine, as if 9 strangers on the interwebs got together and launched a campaign to ruin his brilliant idea before it could begin. Train of thought type? Unhinged. I leave. all the next day, he sends me unprompted messages inviting me back to the group. I block him. Still not entirely convinced the whole thing wasn't just a fever dream. Aren't fever dreams supposed to be nice? This is the opposite of that. This is an oldie, but a goodie. Look, some DMs really struggle to get their adventures started, but this DM is doing himself no favors at all. The party need a reason to go onto the adventure, and the adventure needs to be made somewhat clear to them. They don't need to know all the ins and outs of the, but they need some sort of direction. You're not a good dungeon master because your players are confused, and your players aren't stupid because you're not giving them information. It's the DM's responsibility to help the players along. You don't need to handhold them all the time. In fact, many players probably wouldn't like that, but they need something. Giving them nothing is doing yourself no favors in getting your adventure started in the first place. The opening line of my very first Star Wars campaign was, "Now guys, remember, there's no such thing as underwear in the Star Wars universe," accompanied by a wink. This probably should have been a red flag, but at the time, I was but a sheltered teenager, born without a spine, still new to the world of Dungeons & Dragons and general rules of social etiquette. It started out as a fairly interesting idea, basically a sort of Rogue One situation, where we were a group of misfit underdogs working together to sabotage the plans for some biological superweapon. Now, when I make a character, I always try and do something a little different, so this time, I decided that I wanted to play a kid. Those of you who are veterans to r/RPGHorrorStories already know that that was my first mistake. I basically wanted to play him as a saboteur, a child who had been kidnapped from his family and forced to work for the Empire. He would crawl inside tight spaces, plant bombs, hack life support systems, etc., until he was caught trying to infiltrate the party ship. They spared his life, and the kid decided to join them in order to get revenge on his former captors. Not great, I admit. Are you kidding? That sounds cool as hell. But anyway, it was something I hadn't played before, and I figured that playing a child character would let me avoid some of the general weirdness that happened to me in some previous campaigns. I was so wrong. Now, one thing I learned very quickly was that this was the type of DM who refused to let you fail, which was pretty disappointing, considering my usual playstyle consists of my characters getting repeatedly stomped into the dirt until they learn to become better people. But I figured, hey, whatever, it's his game, and bad D&D is better than no D&D, right? Now let's go back to that, no underwear thing. At first, we thought that it had been like a one-off joke, but we soon discovered that it was an integral part of his game's lore. He kept repeatedly referencing that line as he made the two female characters roll for some really stupid crap, like to not have their skirt fly up when they made an acrobatics check or not to lose their top while they were swimming. This continued until one of the players got fed up with this fan service and rolled to invent underwear. This kept the DM quiet for the time being. It was then that we were introduced to our very first NPC, a waitress, who was described as, and I quote, "a cross between Lopunny and Lola from Space Jam wearing a maid outfit." I don't know who any of those people are. Okay, cool. I would say I don't want to know where this is going, but I know exactly where this is going. Now, I don't know a lot about Star Wars, but I'm pretty sure this isn't canon, but because spine, I tried to just smile and act normal while I watched a man twice my age produce squeaky anime noises until the bunny girl started repeatedly and aggressively flirting with me, my character, my child character. At first, I tried to ignore it by just having my character act completely oblivious until this guy makes me try to make a wisdom roll to not sleep with her. You know, because she was just that attractive. I finally sprout a few vertebrae and pull the out of character card. Dude, what is going on? My character is 12, remember? It's okay, Lola's only 14. I tell him, no! No, it is not okay! I'm not comfortable role-playing this content in a tabletop game, much less this content between two literal children. The DM referenced some dubious Japanese laws regarding the age of consent, and I calmly tried to explain that I wanted nothing to do with this bunny crap. That's when the DM dropped the stinger line. But there's no age of consent in Star Wars. Now I know what you're all thinking. This is the point when I immediately left, right? Oh, I wish. At this point, I'd already mentally clocked out of the game, but we still had 4 hours left. And one of the players was my ride. I've been there, dude. Trapped at a party I don't want to be at with no car, waiting for my ride to get there. In my case, I was drunk. Fun time. But anyway, look, I don't even know what to say to this one. It's gross. It's horrible. Now, I am aware of the legendary Carrie Fisher bit that this DM is likely referencing.
I mean, I bet she even got to wear a bra, even though you told me I couldn't because there was no underwear in space.
However, I will say, and this should be obvious, I don't think Carrie Fisher, God rest her name, or George Lucas for that matter, meant that as a serious lore implication. Though I will say that some Star Wars fans may disagree with me.
Okay, the lack of women's underwear in Star Wars was officially canonized by Carrie Fisher and George Lucas during a 2000s comedy bit. We need to analyze the effect this will have on the deeper lore. Boob physics would likely be very, very different in all of the female characters. I mean, I wasn't thinking about boob physics for any other reason.
And even then, it doesn't matter. This sort of content is not okay in games unless you okay it. And even then, come on, this is a lot. Let's just move on. I'm gonna throw up. This is the only other horror story I've got, and it's the closest I've gotten to playing Dungeons & Dragons. The relevant people are Jack, Brenda, Skinner, Drool, and Kevin. Obviously, not their real names. Skinner was a part of Jack's friend group for almost 20 at the time, and was DMing for a group of 5. Last I heard, Jack and Brenda were still married, despite my parents informing Brenda about Jack flirting with my mom. As for Drool, well, he often drooled worse than any dog I've ever seen and had the annoying habit of whining like a child. The only reason I can think of for everyone keeping Drool as a quote-unquote friend is that he was their weed dealer. Kevin is only relevant because his player character and Drool's player characters were always hooking up in-game, which contributed to the issue. Time for a little background info on how I got dragged into this. Since they got married, Brenda and I bonded as friends by smoking, watching stoner flicks, and just talking while hanging out. One day, I stopped by Jack and Brenda's house to hang out after I got off work. Jack and Brenda were debating the early plot points of DM Skinner's campaign, which led me to voicing interest. We talked to Skinner about the possibility of me joining the campaign, and he suggested that I sit in on a session to see how he DM'd. To be fair, Skinner was upfront about the campaign being extremely not safe for work, and how it sometimes delved into, intimate roleplay. I was also informed there'd be a lot of weed, alcohol, and BBQing. This is because the group turned the monthly D&D session into a day of fun catch-up with friends. I knew what I was sitting in on, and I've always been fine with both, but made sure to voice that my comfort zone ended at the plants. Skinner assured me there'd be nothing else present, and there wasn't. Money arrangements were discussed and handled as everyone was expected to pitch in money to keep the fun affordable for all. To me, that's a reasonable request, even when cooking for 7 people isn't involved. A disclaimer, by the way, yes, we all arranged for designated drivers. If you got altered in either way, you weren't allowed to drive, you had to fork over your keys to DD or Skinner when you arrived. Otherwise, you weren't allowed to drink or smoke. The day rolled around, and we all gathered at Skinner's house early on. A good time of banter, smoking, and drinking was had as we all pitched in to help DM Skinner cook everything. The more dexterous of us played a few rounds of darts on a homemade wooden board with throwing knives. I had an awesome time despite not knowing most of the people. Then the sun set, and D&D started. The details are a little fuzzy since I was interested, but not invested. Brenda used part of the day to catch me up on the setting, being a homebrew world where most of the city had been nuked into oblivion in a mere instant by an unknown power, leaving only a massive hole in the ground. The party consisted of adventurers who survived the end of the city. Skinner's plot hook had been an old blind cleric DMPC that revived an oracle from their god to assemble a set of trustworthy adventurers. After some roleplay, the cleric had convinced each party member they were trustworthy and not senile by whispering to each player character something from their backstory that the cleric could not possibly have known. The oracles led the party to a hidden network of caverns where something had been hidden. The session started with the party near the end of their dungeon crawl for a MacGuffin. Drool struggled to roll high in everything, and he was vocal about it in the loudest, whiniest of ways. It didn't help that his player character went down during the boss fight and was on their last death save when combat ended. With the boss dead, they got their MacGuffin and learned more about the plot. The party backtracked to town, and this is where the problems really began to show. The party stopped at a bar to drink and celebrate. Remember how I said the group was fine with NSFW stuff and ERP? For a change, Kevin's player character ignored the flirting from Drool's player character and hooked up with a barmaid. The ensuing roleplay was brief but awkward. Drool tried their luck, but the curse of low rolls continued. This made Drool sulk even more by drinking more beer when he was already kind of drunk, both in and out of character. By this point, I could tell I wasn't the only one sick of his behavior, so they talked to him about it like adults, right? The in-game night of drinking came to an end. Skinner had Drool roll a constitution save to see if they were just hungover or if they got so drunk they blacked out and did something stupid. I don't remember what Drool rolled, but it was low. Cue the DM Skinner informing Drool of how his player character had blacked out and got thrown out of the bar for being obnoxious and disruptive. Skinner asked the rest of the party what they did with their drunk party member, and the consensus was to let him sleep it off in the stable. Drool didn't care for this one bit and whined some more. This is where Skinner got malicious about it and finished off his summary of overnight events with a quick explanation of how Drool's player character did.
There's no other way. Have you ever a horse?
A what? No!
Well, I assumed not, but it never hurts to ask.
Everyone else started laughing while Drool flipped their crap. I was too busy trying to solve 2 + 2 = 4 on how passing out in a stable led to that incident. An argument ensued for a bit before Drool tried to leave, forgetting that he had turned over his keys to his designated driver so he could drink. That spawned a whole other argument with his designated driver about leaving the session. The arguments ended with Drool sitting at the table, refusing to play or talk to anyone while continuing to sulk and drink. There was a bit of traveling to a nearby city to research a vague location mentioned in a recent oracle, because the next MacGuffin was even obscuring the power of a god. The rest of the session was spent trying to find ways to research said oracle. All in all, I decided the group was a terrible group for me to play with, for 2 reasons. Just 2? 1, I didn't like Drool at all. He was kind of a jerk out of game and had shown himself to be really childish during the game. I was also holding a grudge over how he ruined a huge bowl of mac and cheese by leaning over it while drooling. Then there was our DM Skinner's BS with the stable bits that left me more than a little concerned over what might be done to my player character if I annoyed them somehow. I politely bowed out from the invitation to play and thanked them for the food and fun gathering. Your D&D campaigns have been super fun to watch, thank you by the way, and I think it's time to give things a serious go. I've been interested in Pathfinder for a while, so I'm delving into the rule set to familiarize myself with things while looking for a Pathfinder group that doesn't mind helping a noob learn the rules and find their footing. I wish you best of luck, my friend. I think you're gonna have a great time. Yeah, this group has a lot of personal drama that I'm not going to talk about, but you've pretty much summarized the 2 biggest issues pretty dang well. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is intoxication during a Dungeons & Dragons game. It's not everyone's thing. I definitely do drink during Dungeons & Dragons, just a couple glasses of wine to loosen myself up a bit, considering I can be a pretty uptight guy sometimes, and when I'm hanging out with friends, I want that to not get in the way, you know? However, it can be taken too far. I have no idea how much this group's intake affected their behavior, but I'm willing to bet it's a little bit, at least. Just be aware of how much you can take and how it affects you. That's not a D&D or tabletop thing. That's just a life thing that's going to help you a lot in the future. Overall, this person definitely made the right call when it comes to bowing out of this group. There were a lot of red flags, and that's kind of the benefit of sitting in on a group before joining. You don't get that kind of dedication, and the obligation to join up is certainly lessened. It's like a beta test, and in terms of this group, the beta test absolutely showed some very negative signs. Man, I really saved the crazies for this one. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where we talk about D&D advice for players and DMs old and new. We just did an episode on Minecraft of all things. If you want to check it out, it's linked in the cards. And while you're there, hey, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. Dude, stop. to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you want to send them to us, there's an email in the description. Send them our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in that, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell. Okay, that's it.